Hello and welcome back to the game room. You know what I love? Video games. You know what I love? Talking about games. It seems like a lot of people these days who cover games seem to hate them, or at least the people who play them. Well, that's not me, and that's not the 4,565 of you beautiful people checking out this video here today. We did it again. Another great week. Thank you guys so much. Just because I've been getting some comments about it, yes, I am aware that last week's video was not 2 Switch games, it was 10 Switch games. I am not great as far as the algorithm goes, and I've noticed that titling my videos a certain way leads to people actually seeing them and clicking on them. So yes, this one is called The 3 Games, but yes, it always is about 10 games. And also, for some of the people saying I am an idiot for these kind of videos, talking about FOMO, this and that, just to let you know, the purpose of these videos is not investment advice. It's purely, I'm a collector. I am that idiot who will go out and spend $100, $200, $300 for a game I want in my collection. I don't digitally download it. I like having it on the shelf. So this is intended to let people know about physical games they should get or games they should check out in general. So I'm not trying to up the FOMO. It doesn't matter to me, as I'm never going to sell any of these games. So this is not me just inflating the market to try and make a buck. Just wanted to clarify that. I know most of you guys know that, but every once in a while we'll get the random person who comments something like that probably isn't watching any of the videos. But anyways, we have another Switch video. We're looking at 10 games. If that sounds interesting to you, let's check it out. There's a lot of games out there, some of which you've never even heard of. That's where I come in. My name's Luke. I've been playing games since the age of 2, and I have no life.
This is my game room.
Alright, so the first game we're going to take a look at this week is one that I was over the moon excited about, and somehow when the Kickstarter came out, I completely missed it. Though I was able to get a physical copy of it through Limited Run Games when they did it. And it's funny, when I saw this collector's edition, I jumped on it. Once again, I'm not a huge person into collector's editions, but for this particular game and the way this was presented, this really appealed to a young, 4-year-old Luke. And that was ToeJam and Earl 4, or ToeJam and Earl Back in the Groove. And it came in this giant collector's box. It looked just like one of the presents from the game. And no, I've never opened it because, of course, when the game came out, I downloaded it digitally. And I gotta say, when this came out in 2019, one of the biggest disappointments I've ever had with the game, purely because, I don't know if you guys know, ToeJam and Earl is one of my all-time favorite games of all time. I think it's number 3 or number 4. I think it was number 3 on my top 100 games. Absolutely love it. It is a phenomenal experience, and it is one of the best co-op experiences still to this day. With all of these roguelike and roguelite games happening now, ToeJam and Earl, in my opinion, really started off some of that trend, as well as Rogue. But still, with ToeJam and Earl, if you've played it, you know the secret. It's wonderful. Second game, nothing like the first game. Third game was on Xbox and really just wasn't like the first game. They announced a Kickstarter that Macaulay Culkin, of all people, was behind, and it just looked so freaking good. And when I played it, it does play like the original, but it has too much DNA infecting it from ToeJam and Earl 2 and ToeJam and Earl 3, in my opinion. It's a little overblown. There's a little too much shaking trees. There's not enough exploration and not enough mystery and wonder as there is just kind of going through the motions or dealing with the night and day, the Funkatron zone. Now, even with all of this, I still really enjoy the game and I still highly recommend it. And it's funny, the maker of the game actually saw my video on it back in 2019, and I still gave it a 9 out of 10, but I really, because I'm such a fan of the original, I did have some critiques on it. Still a fun game. As far as all the ToeJam and Earls go, it is my second favorite, so by all means, as much as I sound like I'm downplaying the game, it is a lot of fun. It is still a lot of fun in co-op, and I think you can have even more than 2 players simultaneous co-op. It just got to the point of where the whole fun of the original for me was the exploration and then the mystery of opening the presents. And it seems like ever since the first one, those have been downplayed in my opinion. But either way, a really fun game, one that does not get talked about all that much. And yeah, you don't need the collector's edition, but you can find it. It's on other systems as well. And I love ToeJam and Earl so much. And it was just nice to see it come back. Though not my favorite art style, not gonna lie. Alright, the next one I want to talk about. This is a game that I picked up from a recommendation. I can't remember. I bought it digitally. And I did not know it at a physical release. And I finally went and picked it up. And it is just a really silly, funny game. And that is Death Road to Canada. So there's a lot of games out there that try to do that Oregon Trail formula where you have a group of people, you're on the road, and then random things happen to you on your way to your destination. That's what I thought this game was originally when I picked it up. Upon actually playing it, it does have that, but there's a lot more active combat in this, as well as a lot more randomness that can happen as you're making your way to Canada. So you have to monitor your health, you have to monitor your food supplies, people will come and go, even the people you recruit will come and go. There's mystery and special characters, you find weapons as you go throughout, or you can get killed by the zombies. And I don't believe it's one of those games where if you get bit by a zombie, you become a zombie. No, it has to take a while, but there's bandits, you can collect money, you can buy from people. There's projectile weapon. Like, the amount of content in this is a lot of fun, and it's just a silly, zany game, and one that I have beaten a few times. The final push to get through Canada is pretty intense. I have done a full video on this, I want to say back in 2018 when I played it. One of the better kind of games on the Switch I would recommend for people who, are looking for a game that's not mainline Mario. And I didn't know it had a physical edition. I actually just learned it had a physical edition a couple of months ago. So I had to pick it up, and I wanted to talk about it on this series, but I just finally got the physical edition in this week. And it was about $30-ish, not too expensive, but one that I really recommend. It's just, and it's a cool pixel art style as well. The randomness is truly random, but after a while you can kind of get a rhythm going with it, and just a lot of fun. Now this is one, speaking of games that I waited to get a physical edition on the Switch, I actually don't have a physical edition of this on the Switch. I bought it digitally after I had already dumped tons of hours onto it on the PS4, and that's the copy I still have, which is Stardew Valley. Now, Stardew Valley, I feel like, is one of those games where people who have never played it have this thing in their mind where it's just, it's not a very cool game, and people who have played it are just obsessed with it and, talk about it nauseatingly so. And I am definitely probably on the latter more than the former, but to kind of sum it up, it is Harvest Moon for a 2020s audience, and in a good way. In my opinion, the thing about Harvest Moon is it's a farming game where you basically have to have discipline and you have to have routine. And much like The Sims, once you get to a point where you can then move into a bigger house, then in The Sims, in my opinion, that's kind of when the game gets a little boring. But with Harvest Moon, once you get the formula down to run your farm, invest in it, build up the area, woo the townsfolk, get used to the different scenarios and the different events, then that's when the game really starts getting a nice rhythm to it, until you eventually do get married, and then in later entries you can have a kid. What makes Stardew Valley so much better, in my opinion, is that it's a little bit more grounded in reality. So you have people that are dealing with abuse, alcoholism, other things that don't typically get presented in Harvest Moon. It's a very G-rated scenario of a life, versus in Stardew Valley, it's not necessarily R-rated, but it's not shirking away from any of this stuff. There's even a way where you can get married in Stardew Valley and then get divorced. Like, your wife will be depressed if you aren't giving him enough attention, that kind of thing. But what really makes Stardew Valley a cut above the rest of the games is that they have a combat cave system with a bunch of floors. It reminds me similar to the 100 level dungeon in Lufia 2, or I just played Dave the Diver, and it's actually very similar to Dave the Diver's style of getting the fish and progressing. It's kind of that combat style, but instead of the sushi just being a little mini game, the farming, talking to townsfolk, raising crops, raising animals, that's a little bit more involved. And it's just tied together in such a nice package that it's not a cozy game. I know cozy games becoming a thing. There's a lot of gameplay in this. It's more like a routine game. So every day you kind of have you know how each day is going to play out, where you have to do this, and then, oh, you know what, I'm going to go in the forest and look for mushrooms, or like, you know what, I'm going to go into town and talk to townsfolk, or I'm going to go into the cave and mine. So it really helps you discipline yourself and segment what you're going to do. But overall, it's just a really fun game, really good art style, really solid soundtrack, and one that, if I can tell you guys, highly recommend it. I downloaded this on the Switch just for the heck of it when it came out on the Switch, and I dumped another 70-80 hours into it because it's just that much fun. And it's one of those things where it doesn't feel as much like a time waster as much as it's just engaging. So if you like games like Animal Crossing or anything like that where you like a routine to it, then this is a game that you can get behind. And it's got combat. It's got a lot of combat. It's got a lot of content. And I think everyone should give these games a shot. Now, a game that didn't really get much of a shot when it came out, and I thought it was kind of a shame. You know, it harkened back to the N64 days of a game that really was more meant for playing with friends at, in person. And that game was Mario Golf Super Rush. So yes, I know it didn't come out with tons of levels and tons of people compared to previous Mario Golfs, but what it did have was a very solid game. Unfortunately, the single player mode, you don't play as one of the characters, you play as, like a Mii, which I never really care much for, but it does give you a chance to learn how the game plays. And one of the really cool things about Mario Golf Super Rush is that it introduces a Super Rush mode where you can literally have 4 people playing simultaneously, which is one of the biggest complaints I have with golf games, is having to wait your turn. With all games, it's all, I'm not of the Twitch generation that loves watching other people play. I was of the generation where when my older brother was taking a turn, I had to sit and watch, and I hated it. And what Mario Golf Super Rush does is it allows you to all play at the same time with the Super Rush mode. You hit the ball, you run to the next thing. When you have special shots, you can blow up the course or do other things. Like I played as King Bubon. And it's a lot of fun if you have people to play with in person. Nintendo's never going to sell you on playing online. It's just not their focus. And one of those things where it just came and went. A lot of people were upset that it was a full price game, but myself, I enjoyed it. I think it might have been a little bit better if you had had a chance to unlock more players like you did in the original Mario Golfs, like Mario Golf 64. But overall, just a really fun experience, and one that sadly I've never had a chance to play with 4 people in person, but I think it could be an absolute blast. Now, this is one that I've kind of cooled off on getting the special editions of this or that. I try not to order from Limited Run as much as I can. It's just, they're the only ones who make physical copies of certain games. And one of the ones that I wanted to absolutely get, even though I do have these on the Game Boy Advance, but I did not have the one on the Super Nintendo, and that is the Castlevania Advanced Collection. So I did get the silver box edition, though it has a silver spine instead of a red spine, like the Bloodstained one did, and then I think the normal Castlevania one I didn't get the silver box. But anyways, this has the 3 Game Boy Advance games, so Aria of Sorrow, Circle of the Moon, and then, is it Order of Ecclesiastes? Is that what it's called? And then Dracula X. So then Dracula X was the main onus for me getting this, because I had the other 3 games. So I have Circle of the Moon, was actually a gift to the channel way back in the day. And then I had the double pack that has the 2 other GBA ones. But I don't have Dracula X. I have Rondo of Blood, ironically, on the TurboGrafx 16, the actual Japanese copy, the CD one. But Dracula X is just too damn expensive. And so, because I like having everything physically, guys, and I really, as much as I enjoy playing the Game Boy Advance, and with my Game Boy Pocket, I've been getting better. I actually just beat a game. I beat Great Greed on the Game Boy, which is a really fun game. No one's ever heard of it. Let me know if you know the game. It's just hard for me to do. So I was thinking, I get it on the Switch. That'll be better. And yeah, it's just one of those ones where I started playing Aria of Sorrow, and depending on who you speak to, everyone will have a different answer for which one's the best one. I have beaten Circle of the Moon. I've done a full video on it. I really enjoyed Circle of the Moon, but it is very much these are the 3 games that very much are the legacy of Metroidvania, like Igavania, because they, after Symphony of the Night came out, then with these games, you know, you started seeing some of the things get stripped away from Symphony of the Night, such as the different armor. But like, for instance, Circle of the Moon has a really cool thing where you have these different card abilities you can line up that make your character act way different, but they have a drop chance off certain enemies, so then you have to go around collecting them. But anyways, really fun collection, one I would recommend picking up. It's on other systems too, but once again, I like having this stuff on the Switch. Now, this was a special edition that I was super stoked to get. It lined up with the first HD 2D game to come out ever, and that was the original Octopath Traveler. And this looks like a giant tome. It opens up and gives these little scenes that look like little 3D stand-ins, which you can find these kind of things on Etsy that people sell with pixel art. And everything about this game had me so excited because it looked like it was harkening back to the classic 16-bit RPG days. And it did. It actually did. The music was phenomenal. You could go through in a non-linear status and start with any of the 8 characters, collect the other 7 throughout the game. Each one of them had their own separate storyline that, spoilers, never really connected. Like, there's a little bit of a connection in some of the thematics, but it didn't really matter. Like, you could go through and just beat the game with one character and never unlocking the other 7. It doesn't really connect. Now, there is a secret end dungeon that does allow you to beat a super boss, as a lot of Square Enix games always do with the super bosses, but it doesn't really connect. Now, Octopath Traveler 2 does actually have a better end game, in my opinion, for that. But Octopath Traveler 1, in my opinion, has better pacing. So I actually much prefer the style of Octopath Traveler 1 because I feel like they took some of the criticism from 1 and then put it in 2 to try and change it up. As well as the way these games play out remind me a lot of Live Alive. Like, I know people have said this is more hearkening to the Saga series. I would say it's more to Live Alive. That seems to have evoked it much more so, in my opinion. Just the way that there's an overarching plot that doesn't really connect. But it's just a phenomenal game. The turn-based combat in Octopath Traveler is so good. It's made by the team that made Bravely Default, and as much as I enjoy the concept of Bravely Default, I do not enjoy the idea of skipping turns. And so they take that ability to essentially boost damage in a turn, where that's called Bravely, where you would then say, I'm gonna spend 3 attacks right now, but then I'm gonna have no attack for 3 turns. So they kind of fix that by giving you the ability to boost. So the boost builds as the turns go on. So then if you don't use boost, then it builds up. And then you can use that to do a 4 times damage, 3 times damage. And you got to do that because certain enemies will need to be attacked, say 3 times with an axe to put them in a stun phase. And that's important because if you put them in a stun phase, it can interrupt them and etc. Whatever. We're going down the rabbit hole. I love Octopath Traveler. Highly recommend it. Even if you're not getting this version, which is called the Wayfarer's Edition, still highly recommend any edition and on anywhere. I know it got ported to other systems, but when it originally came out, it was just on the Switch there in 2018. Now, the last special edition we're going to talk about right here was a game that I enjoyed well enough, but it seems like the greater majority of gamers really took to this game even more than I did, and that was Fire Emblem Three Houses. So Fire Emblem Three Houses was a fun enough game, don't get me wrong, but I really did not enjoy the persona-ness of it, of going through and having this teacher and these different people and having to deal with building the monastery or not building the monastery. And then it has this like Harry Potter-ness of, oh, you have this and that, relationships. Like, I like the old school Fire Emblem more so, where you just beat a chapter, get the, kind of adjust your troops, go to the next chapter. Like, I don't necessarily want to, it slows down the pace so much. It's kind of the problem I had with Triangle Strategy, where you beat a level and then you have this deliberation, this vote, and then you finally get to another level. Like, my favorite part of these kind of games is the turn-based combat. Like, give me the turn-based combat. Let me figure it out. Let me figure out my troops. Okay, I need to pivot, or I need to do this or that. I need to get in there and manage what I can with who I have. And oh, by the way, if anyone dies, they're dead forever. So you need to make sure and not let that happen. I want to say this one, I don't think it was the first one, but it does have the rewind ability where if you lose someone, you can, instead of having to restart the whole chapter, you can just rewind a turn or two. I want to say that first came out in Fates, maybe. And that's a great addition, don't get me wrong, though it does kind of rob some of the, some of the badness. Don't get me wrong. I don't like restarting a 1 hour chapter, but it is one of those things where, yes, it does take away some of the self-satisfaction, but also it saves a whole hell of a lot of time. But then on the flip side, the time that's saved by having that is then dumped into these relationship sims and these, going and fishing or going and doing this or having lunch or tea with someone, which is not for me, man. It's just not for me. But yeah, really fun game. Multiple endings, multiple different things you can do in that one. And the way, I think this is called Seasons of Warfare, yeah. Fun. I will say I enjoyed the combat more in Engage, the sequel, though this is a far better storyline out, and eventually I just started skipping the monastery stuff, and I enjoyed it a lot more. All right, last few we got down here. So one that I was very excited was coming out, and I actually just popped in and played it yesterday. And yes, I know I'm recommending picking these games up, but some of the times, you play one and you just don't really like all that much. And unfortunately, that's what happened to me with new Joe and Mac Caveman Ninja. So Joe and Mac on the Super Nintendo is low-key one of my favorite games on the whole dang system. It was a perfect co-op game back in the day. I was unaware that it was an arcade conversion. I really didn't know that, as well as I was unaware that there was 2 sequels. There was Congo's Caper, I think it's called. That's actually Joe and Mac 2 in Japan, but then they renamed it like Congo's Adventure, something like that. And then there's Joe and Mac 2 Lost in the Tropics, which is a full-blown Joe and Mac sequel that I had no idea came out. That was one of the first games in 2015 when I really started diving deep into the catalogs that I picked up, got a complete box copy of it, and thank God I did, because that game is skyrocketed. But we're not talking about those. We're talking about this game. So you would think this would just be a port of the SNES game. At least that's what I thought it was. It's not. It's more of a remake of the arcade, and there's 2 different modes. There's the regular mode, and then there's the extended mode. And the extended mode is what I thought would be more like the Super Nintendo game after playing the regular mode where the level's like 5 seconds. But no, the extended mode is completely different. And gone is the map where you can unlock keys and go in different areas. Now it's just completely linear within a little bit of a divergence. And the art style reminded me of ToeJam and Earl 4, and not in a good way, but more importantly, the combat is just not as fluid. I was getting my butt kicked on just the regular mode, and the wheel weapon, which was always the best weapon, was almost terrible. That, and you were constantly losing health by just standing around. I don't remember that happening in the original Joe and Mac. Now, a lot of enemies drop health items, which is nice, but it just is not the same. I was not enjoying the experience whatsoever on that or on the extend mode. Now, I do appreciate it letting me play as Mac, because I think the Super Nintendo will let you do that too. Mac is the blue-haired guy, Mac for life. But man, what a disappointment. To be honest, I was really expecting more from that game, and now it's one of those things where it's like, wow, I really... Yeah, I can't really recommend it, but if it sounds interesting to you, if you'd like to check it out, it's still probably a fun co-op experience, so I am still holding judgment for that to see if it's a good co-op experience, and I love Joe and Mac, so I still wanted to support it, but yeah, kind of a bummer. Alright, and then this is one that finally got a sequel after, almost 20 years, came out on the N64, was one of those games that people loved. It was an on-rails shooter, but not really. And they finally made a sequel called New Pokemon Snap. And this came out right around the same time as Mario Golf Super Rush. And I gotta say, I really enjoyed the original Pokemon Snap. I have not followed Pokemon since the original Red and Blue. So outside of the 151, I do not know the Pokemon all that well. I didn't play Gold, I didn't play Diamond, Pearl, Ruby, Sapphire, the remakes, Black, White, Heart Gold, blah, blah, blah. Like so many. And now they're all so stupid expensive too, which makes it prohibitive to even get into these damn things. But I did pick up New Pokemon Snap. And again, it's one of those games where it really pads the playstyle. Because one of the big criticisms they have from people on Pokemon 64 is that you can pretty much beat the damn thing in like 3 hours. Not the case on this game. And that's partially because they give you 4 classifications of pictures. The levels have you going back and forth to them in the day, in the night. Sometimes they'll change up pathways slightly. There's kind of boss battles, not really. Like it's over, and then there's different things you can throw. So in the original one, you just threw an apple to kind of instigate the level. In this one, you get the apple, but then you get like a fairy power. There's another one where you can throw out there's extra things you can throw out to get the Pokemon to act differently. And it's cool, don't get me wrong, but it is just not my cup of tea. It will way overstayed its welcome. I would still recommend it if you enjoyed the original. You're probably going to enjoy this. If you're a Pokemon fan, you probably eat it up. But as someone who really enjoyed Pokemon 64, I was a little let down with this one. Not terribly so, but yeah, this is kind of when the Switch started disappointing me with some of the releases, because I think this was 2019 or 2020, and because I got this one and Mario Golf at the same time, but just one that I want to throw out there because no one really talks about it anymore. And it's funny, as much as people really wanted Mario Pokemon 64 or Pokemon Snap to get a sequel, I just feel like this one was not as great as it could have been, and largely it's because it made it too damn long. And then the last one we're going to talk about here is one that I found out about because I really, really loved Blazing Chrome. I'm kicking myself for not getting a damn physical edition of it, and looking into the developer, I found out they had other games, and then some of those other games got a physical release on the Switch, and that would be this collection, which is the Oniken and Odallus collection. So this is 2 different games, and Odallus plays a lot like a take on the Castlevania, the true Castlevania formula, not the Metroidvania, but original Castlevania 1 through 4, that kind of style. Though it's got a little bit more akin to Holy Diver mixed with it, but it's just really cool, great art style. Like, these guys kill it with the NES feel, but on a modern console. And then the other game, which is Oniken, plays more like a hybrid of, say, a Strider, Ninja Gaiden, with a little bit of a, kind of a beat 'em up feel. Like, it's just... Or, God, what was the game? I just played it yesterday, and what was it feeling like to me? I can't quite remember. But just a lot of fun. Great graphical style. Now, both games start with it looking with a CRT filter that gives scan lines and it kind of bevels the edges. I turned it off on both of them. I felt the game looked better once I did that, but if you're into that kind of thing, both of them come with that default on. So just be aware of that. And it was just one of those things where, wow, because Blazing Chrome is a great Contra-like game. And then these 2 games are also just like right in that same caliber. And this studio is just very, very good at making that old school NES type game feel, but for a modern game system. So highly recommend picking this one up. It's starting to climb up there. That's why I jumped on it. And just overall, really can't recommend the collection enough. Odallus, I did feel was better in my opinion than the other one, but both of them are very, very cool. And there you have it, guys. That is another 10 games you need to run out immediately, drop all your bank account monies on it, and pick it up for the Switch. Thank you again, as always, for another banger week. Just a quick heads up, next week is April 1st on Tuesday, my normal release day, and I am considering putting out a joke video. I know that kind of spoils the surprise, but what do you expect? I mean, anyways, I'm thinking of doing that, so let me know if you're interested. It will be something that's very, very different, but it should be fun. Let me know what you think. And just thank you guys again for all the nice words, the well wishes. I responded to the comment, but on Signalis, I did open the damn thing, and I do have the lenticular photo, which is what everyone's looking for, so that's pretty cool. And thank you guys for the suggestions as well. I actually had a couple people suggest some Switch games to look into, which I have picked up, and I'm sure we'll be talking about, not next week, but maybe the week after that. So keep those suggestions coming too for physical games to take a look at, because hey, that's what we did on the 360, and it's cool doing this on the Switch, because yes, that is where the collection budget's going right now, because that's kind of what I'm interested in at the moment. But anyways, as a reminder, I release a new video every Tuesday. It's been so nice getting a hold of you. Take care.